The female CEO Millionaire fainted at a party. Woke up in a mechanic's garage with a little girl beside. The last thing Victoria remembered was the crystal chandelier spinning above her head, the champagne flute slipping from her perfectly manicured fingers, and the sound of her own heartbeat drowning out the gasps of Manhattan's elite. Then darkness swallowed her whole. When her eyes finally fluttered open, she wasn't lying on the marble floor of the penthouse ballroom where she'd been celebrating her company's billion-dollar acquisition. Instead, she found herself on a worn-out couch that smelled of motor oil and old leather, staring up at water-stained ceiling tiles in what appeared to be a mechanic's garage. And beside her, curled up in a chair too big for her small frame, was a little girl with tangled dark hair and the most watchful brown eyes Victoria had ever seen. If this story already has your heart racing, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what you think will happen next, and subscribe to Kindness Pulse for more stories that will move your soul. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Victoria tried to sit up, but her head swam with dizziness and her designer gown caught beneath her legs. The little girl immediately sprang forward, her small hands surprisingly steady as she helped Victoria settle back against the threadbare cushions. "You should rest," the child said softly, her voice carrying a maturity that didn't match her appearance. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. "Papa said you hit your head pretty hard. You've been sleeping for hours. Where am I?" Victoria's voice came out hoarse, confused. She looked around the garage with growing alarm. Tools hung on pegboards, car parts cluttered every surface, and through the open bay door, she could see a neighborhood that definitely wasn't the Upper East Side. This looked like the kind of place Victoria's security team would have steered her away from without a second thought. "You're in Papa's garage," the girl explained, tucking a blanket more securely around Victoria's shoulders. "You collapsed right outside during the party across the street. Everyone was too busy to notice, but Papa saw you fall. He brought you here because you wouldn't wake up and he was worried. I'm Emma, by the way." Victoria's mind reeled. She'd fainted at the Waldorf Astoria, surrounded by hundreds of people, and somehow ended up here. Where was her assistant? Her security detail? Her phone? She patted her sides frantically but found nothing. Just then, a man appeared in the doorway, wiping his grease-stained hands on an even greasier rag. He was tall, with tired eyes and shoulders that carried the weight of more than just physical labor. When he saw Victoria was awake, relief flooded his weathered face. "Thank God," he breathed. "I'm Marcus. I tried calling for an ambulance, but your phone was dead and mine. Well, I couldn't afford the call. I was about to take you to the hospital myself when you started coming around." He gestured helplessly at his surroundings, clearly embarrassed. "I know this isn't exactly the plaza, but I couldn't just leave you lying on the street." Victoria wanted to be angry. She wanted to demand answers, call her lawyers, make someone pay for this indignity. But when she looked at Emma's concerned face and saw the genuine worry in Marcus's eyes, something inside her chest cracked open. These people, who had nothing, had helped her when everyone else had walked past. "You saved me," she whispered, and it wasn't a question. Over the next few hours, as Victoria's strength slowly returned and Marcus tried repeatedly to get his ancient cell phone working, to call someone for her, she learned their story. Emma's mother had died 2 years ago, leaving Marcus to raise their daughter alone while trying to keep his failing garage afloat. They lived in the tiny apartment above the shop, surviving on ramen noodles and Emma's unwavering optimism. Marcus worked 16-hour days but still couldn't make ends meet because the big chain auto shops had stolen all his customers. And Emma dreamed of becoming a doctor someday, though Marcus couldn't imagine how they'd ever afford college, or even if they'd keep a roof over their heads next month. Victoria listened to all of this while Emma carefully brought her water and stale crackers, the child's hospitality breaking something fundamental inside the CEO's carefully constructed walls. When had she last felt this kind of genuine human connection? When had anyone cared for her without wanting something in return? Her entire life was board meetings, hostile takeovers, and relationships built on transactions. Even at her own celebration party, she'd collapsed and no one had noticed because everyone was too busy networking, too consumed with their own agendas to see her fall. As evening shadows lengthened across the garage floor, Victoria made a decision that would change all three of their lives forever. When Marcus finally got through to her assistant and the woman's hysterical voice came crackling through the phone, Victoria didn't ask to be picked up immediately. Instead, she asked for her lawyer. Then she asked Marcus and Emma to sit down with her. "I want to invest in your garage," she said simply. "But more than that, I want to set up a trust fund for Emma's education. And I want to hire you, Marcus, to oversee a new initiative at my company, a program that helps small businesses like yours survive against corporate competition." Marcus stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "Why would you do that? You don't even know us." Victoria felt tears, real tears, not the calculated ones she'd learned to produce in boardrooms, sliding down her cheeks. "Because you saw me when I was invisible. Because Emma shared her crackers when she's probably hungry herself. Because somewhere along the way to building my empire, I forgot what actually matters. You didn't help me because of who I am or what I could do for you. You helped me because it was the right thing to do. That's rarer than any deal I've ever closed." Emma climbed onto the couch and curled up beside Victoria, her small hand finding the CEO's larger one. "Does this mean we're going to be okay, Papa?" she asked quietly. Marcus couldn't speak, could only nod as his own tears fell freely. Victoria pulled the little girl closer, feeling something warm and real and human spreading through her chest for the first time in years. She'd built a fortune, conquered industries, and commanded respect from the most powerful people in the world. But it took fainting at a party and waking up in a mechanic's garage to understand what true wealth really meant. Before I share how this story ends, if you're feeling inspired, moved, or just happy you stopped by, please give this video a like and make sure you're subscribed to Kindness Pulse. Share this story with someone who needs to remember what really matters in life. Your support helps us bring you more stories that touch hearts and change perspectives. 6 months later, Marcus's garage had transformed into a thriving community hub, employing 12 people from the neighborhood and offering free car repairs to single parents and elderly residents 1 day a week. Emma's trust fund was secured, and she'd already started volunteering at a local clinic, her dreams of becoming a doctor more real than ever. And Victoria. She still ran her empire, still closed her deals, but now she did it with Emma's picture on her desk and a weekly dinner date with the little girl and her father that she never, ever missed. She'd learned that sometimes you have to lose consciousness in your old life to wake up to a new one. Sometimes the people with the least give you the most. And sometimes the greatest success isn't measured in dollars or deals, but in the small hand that reaches for yours when you need it most, and the hearts you open when you finally learn to see the people who've been invisible all along. The chandelier had stopped spinning. Victoria's world had stopped spinning with it. And in the stillness, in a greasy garage with a little girl beside her, she'd finally found what she'd been chasing all along, a reason to live that went beyond just surviving another day at the top. She'd found family. She'd found purpose. She'd found home.